Hello and welcome to Monday Night Therapy with John and Todd, or John and Todd's Monday Night Therapy, or Todd and John's. Okay, whatever. But we're here. We're here. It's a Monday night. It's the Monday night after Christmas. Todd, you remember this? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Remember how innocent we were?
We were very innocent. We were so innocent.
Okay, where do we start? Did you have a Christmas?
We had a little Christmas. Actually the week before we went over to my daughter's and spent some time over there with my daughter and her husband and the little 6-month-old, 5-month-old, whatever she is, and had a little Christmas cheer there. And then Sunday, Christmas Day, we had Christmas with my family, my brother and his family, my mom and dad. And I scored pretty good. You know, I didn't have an extensive list for Santa Claus this year. My number one item on my list was brown liquids. And it was brown liquids last year too. And so, you know, I figure I'm good with coffee. I'm good with beer. I'm good with bourbon. And I scored coffee and beer this year. And that's good. It works for me.
You get probably water out of a Nebraska creek.
Well, that hasn't been given to me yet. I suppose somebody could dip a cup into a sewer system too, you know, probably give that to me. But no, so far, you know, I've scored pretty good for Christmas. So it was good seeing family. And I don't know, you know, we're kind of in transition living in this apartment, and it'll be nice maybe to have a little more of a traditional Christmas a year from now.
James Boardman says, I was gifted the flu. Yippee. Yeah, we were gifted. We were gifted that thing that's been going around the last 2-3 years. My wife was anyway, and it's not been it's not been the best Christmas ever, but we got to FaceTime. My son lives literally a block and a half, maybe a block away from me, and all my kids and everybody gathered at his house, and my wife and I FaceTime with him to open their presents. And I got this. Yeah, I have props this time. I have sweet corn, artificially flavored baked snack sticks called Pretz. And then I got this, which is Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok, which is a really excellent game. I love playing video games because they're how I veg out. Except that this one is way too fast for me. I have to set it down to the more story, less combat setting, which really bothers me a lot. And then I also have this, Todd. Because what would Christmas be without cheese balls?
There you go. Industrial size cheese balls.
Hey, David Matney says, I got my Coronation shirt.
You know, I think CornNation scored pretty well over the holidays because I saw on different places, I saw CornNation t-shirts. I saw the Cobby sweatsuits. You know, holy moly, the gospel of CornNation is being spread in the form of apparel.
It works for me. I didn't know what I was doing when I got into this, but I'm learning. You know, I gave my Cobby jacket away to my nephew who's in 6th grade, and apparently in Grand Island I have a 6th grade class that is like a cult following or something. That's just, they were describing all this to me when I met with my family, and I found it a little bit, kind of weird. I found it weird. And then I gave my Cobby hoodie away to my mother-in-law and said, give it to one of my nephews when they show up here. So I don't know who got it, but, you know, there you go.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll bet that that jacket that's in Grand Island. I'll bet that's really popular among sixth graders. I think sixth graders would find that jacket the cat's meow.
Roger Moore says, I saw a Coronation shirt in Colorado winning. Well, that is, I'm glad to hear all this stuff. I guess, I just, I just tried, I just tried, threw the website together, threw designs up that, I had and weren't being used. And I guess things are going well. But, I appreciate the sport. I'm sure Todd appreciates the sport. Maybe when you see him in person, with Todd, get Todd some brown liquids. Okay. What do we got for news, Todd? Do you know?
Well, you know what? We had a kickoff news item, but I'm going to change it because Kingsley Gibbons has thrown a comment on there, and I thought about this today with the fact that our former leader of the football program now has a $5 million mansion in in the Phoenix area with a beautiful view of Camelback, I must say. I was a principal for 23 years, and one of the things that grew in importance as I continued through my profession, and because there are a few things that change in school, was the focus on careers. And you'd have some schools had career days, or you'd bring in people from different professions to talk to your kids, or you'd take tours and whatever. But along that whole idea of identifying what your strengths and weaknesses are, exploring different opportunities that might fit with what your interests are, what your strengths are, all of that kind of stuff connected. And it is apparent to me that whenever I sat down with kids, and whether it was one-on-one or with a guidance counselor, and we're suggesting things that they might want to think about or pursue, we were channeling kids in the wrong direction. I think the profession that has the greatest benefit with the least amount of output is fired head football coach. We need to start encouraging young people to aspire to be fired Division I football coaches. Because if you're a fired Division I football coach, you too can buy a $5 million mansion with 5 bedrooms and 5.5 bathrooms. These guys get fired and they never have to work another day in their life. It is incredible the way that they set these contracts up. So, instead of aspiring to be an accountant, or maybe aspiring to be a welder, or,
a lawyer. You have to put lawyers in there. They're always in there. They're everywhere.
Well, yeah. Instead of having aspirations like that, we need to encourage kids to become fired football coaches. Fired football coaches. Not successful football coaches. No, fired football coaches.
Lonnie Kittleman says, fire me now, please. Lonnie, are you a football coach currently? Because, if you are, you may be entitled to significant payouts. And, I saw Husk guys on Twitter tweet the thing about Scott Frost's new house. And my response to him was, never heard of him. And that's kind of where I just want to go with that. Honest to God,
I think it's time for all of us just to move away. It's past time. It's in the past. Let's not worry about it anymore. We've got, look, Scott Frost is entitled to whatever Scott Frost has, and, the life he's going to leave. And good luck, Scott. Let's there we go. Roger Moore is dropping out of med school to become a fired football coach. See, Roger, God bless you. I think you're headed in the right direction.
There's a T-shirt in this somewhere.
I think so.
My son got a T-shirt that says "Bring back smoking on planes," which he will wear with pride and irritate people. Okay, well, I think the. Go ahead.
The big news, I think the bigger news, more important news today, certainly, is that Chancellor Brewington has announced that he's going to leave the Nebraska football program and enter the NFL draft. Um, I'm not an NFL draft expert or an NFL scout. I have no credentials along those lines. I find it interesting that Chancellor Brewington is possibly considered an NFL draft pick. I mean, um, he doesn't come across to me as one of the top tight ends in America, and we've seen a lot of tight ends drafted from Nebraska and from other Big Ten schools in recent years. Seems like the Big Ten's kind of been a hotbed for tight ends. And I don't know that Chancellor Brewington fits into that mold, but I guess where I'm coming from with it is I'm sad to see the guy go. He's played a bigger role. He played a bigger role this year than he did the year before. It's fun watching him play. He doesn't shy away from contact. And the guy's got some athleticism. I mean, they ran him on some special plays, some gadget kinds of plays where he had the ball. Boy, it would have been nice to see Chancellor Brewington part of this football team for at least for next season, in my mind.
I think his best. I do a doubt that he gets drafted. I haven't looked at his NFL draft stuff either, but a guy like that though might just end up on an undrafted free agent and be able to get on a squad that, where he maybe can prove himself and show some of his skills because he did make some good plays. And Kingsley Gibbons said they didn't use him enough this year. I have to agree with that. I think his biggest problem is just not getting enough opportunity to show what he can do. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, there's no question about that.
If we had a quarterback that wasn't constantly on run for his life, I have become the process of flushing the entire last season out of my head. Like you talked earlier about some guy that bought some nice house somewhere. No idea. Portal,
never heard of the
Todd.
guy.
Portal. We're gonna do this until one of us starts the.
So how do you like the? Okay, John, if you're we'll play a couple of scenarios out. Just from your perspective, John Johnston, Nebraska football fan, what do you think of the portal?
I think that it gives people an opportunity to get out of the situation that they're in. Texas Hudson Card, quarterback at Texas. Hudson Card is transferring to Purdue today to play for new coach Ryan Walters. I think that's a good thing for him because I think Hudson Card, got overlooked. Who was it? Quinn Ewers was the guy. He's going to be the
from
guy.
Ohio State.
Yeah. So Hudson Card gets to transfer. He doesn't have to do all this bullshit with the NCAA. Remember how they'd maybe we'll grant you a favor and maybe we won't, but we're sure as hell going to take our time to wait till the last minute. But I think that it's overall a good thing. On the other hand, these are young people, and there seems to be a whole crap ton of them entering it and not really finding places to go. So I think Nebraska has had let's just say a crap ton go into the portal. And I have three. Now, admittedly, in the last few days, I haven't been paying attention as closely as I should because, I don't know, I had to come back early because the winter was terrible and I didn't want to get stuck in the same crappy situation I was when I drove to Nebraska. But so we got Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. I don't think he's found a home. DeColdis Crawford, not found a home. I could go through this whole list, but I'd guess, 15, 18 people, 20?
Yeah, I think we probably had in the ballpark of 18 to 20 players that went into the portal. And like you said, we've only heard of three that have hooked on somewhere. Ernest Hausman is at Michigan. Jacquez Yant is at Florida A&M.
Right.
And then that Gould, I can't think of his last name. Jaden Gould?
Jaden Gould.
Jaden Gould is at Syracuse.
Right.
And, to me, we heard at one time, and I'm not even going to throw a number out because I'd be way off, I'm sure, but, there's a few thousand athletes that have gone into the portal. And, you know, I think some of them are going in there with the attitude, or at least with the belief, that they're going to get recruited like they were, coming out of high school. And that does not appear to be happening. And, I don't know. I think you're running a risk. And I guess maybe it is kind of a way to thin the herd. Maybe it's the herd thinning itself, so to speak. John and I are old enough that we remember back in the day when Nebraska, and had the Tom Osborne walk-on program with a lot of players. Nebraska had a freshman football team that played a 5-game schedule every year. And it was very common that, you'd use up 1 year of eligibility playing on that freshman team, and then you would redshirt your second year on campus. And this was almost to a player. I mean, it was across the board. And at the end of that redshirt year, the coaching staff would have conversations with players and basically say, it would be in your best interest to move on. If you want to play meaningful snaps, at the college football level, it's going to be in your best interest to go somewhere else and play. And, at a different time, different era, there were a lot of guys whose dream it was, to run out of that tunnel on Saturdays and to be recognized on senior day. Whether they, ever played in a game or not, wasn't the priority. They wanted to contribute to the Nebraska football program. They wanted to be known as a Nebraska football player. But, times have changed. And some of these guys come in and they're not getting the playing time they want, or a coach leaves, that they were very close to, and they have that opportunity to move on. But I think there's got to be a pretty high level of disappointment at this point in time, because I'll guarantee you some of those guys, I'm sure they expected that they were going to get picked up, and they haven't.
I know when Frost came in that there were some players that I don't want to use the term ran off, but they basically told that you're not going to play football here. We will honor your scholarship. And I know, I know from talking to one of them's mother that the guy was able to complete. He was able to keep a scholarship and able to complete I think a master's degree without having to pay for anything, because Nebraska was, I don't know, generous, or they honored their commitment. I guess whatever perspective you want to take, but you'd hope that some of them would have that opportunity. I mean, the thing about it is you do have to pay back those student loans. I mean, at a certain level, we probably shouldn't go there.
Well,
but having a scholarship and not having a scholarship, so I don't know. I guess you know what? It's an opportunity for them, and if you're gonna screw up the opportunity and disappear, I hope you're getting good advice from people. That's all. That's the biggest thing about it. I think this is all new. In 5-10 years from now, we're going to look at it probably differently. But right now it's a little nuts, and there's not much regulation, and there's not much control. Okay, what else? Anything else on the portal?
Yeah, another thing about the portal, I'll just throw a couple things out there for, shifting gears real quick, and we'll come right back, is that John Cook, tapped into the portal and brought in another outside hitter, that played at Florida the last couple of years. And, it's not the first time that the volleyball team has gone into the portal. They brought the center blocker in the middle from Penn State last year. So, not unheard of. They brought Lexi's son in as a transfer a couple of years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, I guess, actually. But I think that was pre-portal. That was just a straight-up transfer. But, we won't diagnose all of that. People might be saying, what, we got another outside hitter? What are we going to do with her? Well, maybe we're going to run a 6-2 offense, but different story, different time. But I think something else that's kind of interesting, I think we may shift to the portion of our show commonly referred to as Iowa Sucks. Is that, Kirk, bring back the 1970s Ferents. Even the Iowa Hawkeyes are tapping into the portal a little bit. They have brought in some players, and Kirk Ferentz has always done things a little bit different. He's the epitome of an old school guy. He was the one that would basically, once a kid committed, he considered that signing on the dotted line, and you didn't dare look at another school or communicate with another school. I mean, that's the way that he approached things. Your word is your bond, so to speak. And Iowa doesn't appear to be real interested in jumping in the NIL stuff. John's going to talk a smidge about that in a minute here. But they also were very resistant to the portal. In fact, Iowa had, before this year, had spent very, very little time even considering bringing players in. Well, they've recognized that they're going to have to compete, and they're going to have to bring some people in. But this is our opportunity, to sit there and scratch your head and say, what the hell's going on with Iowa, when they apparently want nothing to do with NIL. So, John, what fill us in here a little bit. I know we're going to talk NIL in the future, big time.
Okay, so college football, Reddit college football, which is, they have a pretty good-sized community, and their Twitter account is certainly very active. But somebody out there on the Twitter, Bill, posted something about Iowa ending partnership with their NIL collective. Thus Swarm, it was the largest NIL collective apparently for Iowa. And they say, today we were told that Iowa Athletics will not support us any further and will not comply with our request unless we comply with Title IX and raise money for all Hawkeye sports. But basically,
wait. Time out. Iowa?
Yeah.
Took a position?
The school that has had to deal with how many lawsuits with problems with women's sports, some kind of virtue signaling, with the whole NIL thing. But the guy, this is a complaint from this NIL collective about how they did these videos, and they wanted to send them out to people in the Iowa space and start getting this thing going, and it's all been killed.
Well, I tell you what, John, and schools are struggling with NIL. Schools are struggling with the portal. Those are two things that have a life in college athletics of maybe 2 years, and both of them came when the NCAA is at its absolute weakest in terms of its authority. And NCAA didn't want to touch either one of them. They, in fact, they tried to get Congress to take some kind of action so they wouldn't have to. And with, the combination of the portal and NIL money has turned Division I college athletics into the Wild Wild West. There is going to need to be some kind of controls. There's going to have to be some kind of consistency and regulation over both of them to have any.
This is free market capitalism, Todd. Come on, we're in America.
I understand that, but yeah. Well, we'll talk more about this down the line.
Okay, should we anything else?
Portal? No.
Okay.
No.
I have to find the articles. I have gobs of windows up. Okay. I'm switching things around, moving things around. Matt Rhule has a whole gob of guys.
A whole gob.
On his code, a whole gob. That's more than 3, I think, is a shit ton, more than 5.
With previous coaches, and we've lived through quite a few of these transitions where we sit there excitedly waiting to find out first who the offensive coordinator is and the defensive coordinator, and then the position coaches. And Matt Rhule still has two position coaching two position coach jobs are still open. I think the linebacker job and the wide receiver position, those are still both open, which would lead one to believe that the coach that he's after either is coaching an NFL team that's still in playoff contention or is coaching on a college team that is playing in a big bowl. And so, those are going to happen. They've recruited, Nebraska's bringing in, I think, 4 linebackers. So, in this recruiting class. So my guess is that they're communicating with those players who the linebacker coach is, but they are not going public with whomever it's going to be. But, what has been interesting to me is the other staff that he's been hiring. It's college football has turned into, like a corporate business structure, and it looks a lot more like the NFL. And Matt Rhule had a couple of years experience in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, if people want to know, what's the difference between Matt Rhule and whoever that guy was that coached last year, it's how to structure a football program, quite honestly. And
that is true. That is
very
true.
much so. I mean, there's a lot of structure. There's he is putting together a staff that will probably rival, the top programs in the country. But what I found particularly interesting, John, you referenced corporate America quite a bit in some of your examples, but there are 2 people that they released today information on that really I find interesting. And one of them is Jarrett Wilson. And Jarrett Wilson's official title, and this is the first.
Is it Wilson or is it Wishon?
Wishon, excuse me, Wishon. Jarrett Wishon.
Okay.
And his title is assistant to head coach. And I don't believe I've ever heard of anyone holding that position before. Assistant to the head coach. Now, here's what's really interesting. And John, I'm sure you have much better understanding of what this person's going to do than I do. But his background was he was a police chief or police detective, and he worked for the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
For a number of years. Yeah.
And he is an assistant to the head coach. So what do you suppose Mr. Wishon's primary responsibilities are, John? Because I don't think he's going to be the guy in uniform that accompanies him across the field to shake hands so no terrorists attack him, on the field.
I was trying to think about this, and it just hit me, Todd, what his job is. His job is to keep people's shit in line. Right? I mean, my God. In order to be a police detective, I'm pretty sure you have to work up your ranks. I don't think at least all I know about that is, every cop show I've ever watched where you're a guy that wears a uniform on the street and then you move up and get promoted to detective. So I assume he had to do, footwork or beat stuff. And then you move up and be a detective and then a special agent and criminal investigator with the ATF from 2014 until basically last March. So it's I just think it's very interesting. I would guess a guy like that, really, I'm not even making that up. It's if I say to keep people in shit in line, maybe he is honest to God, like a guy that's probably has good insight to people. You know what I mean? When you're a policeman, you have to investigator. You have to go through all. I would assume you have to learn all the profiling stuff, and you have to have a pretty keen mind about dealing with people. And that's basically what a head coach is going to do. I would guess that his job is basically going to be like that guy that whispers in the head guy's ear and it just says stuff about people he's working with. So I thought his background was very interesting. Now he did. I can't remember what. Did he go to Temple and wherever he was played at? He played college ball and he graduated with a criminology degree. So obviously, he didn't, go right into coaching. He went into criminology stuff and used his degree. And then he came over, maybe he's one of those guys that said, screw this, I want to go coach.
Well, I think he also might be that guy who's going to control who has contact with Matt Rhule and who doesn't. And not as if, people are just going to charge up at, and want to ask Matt Rhule for his autograph or questions. And this guy, that's not what I'm talking about. There might be some security, but I really believe that he probably will spend a lot of time managing, to some extent, the schedule of who has access to him and when you have access to it.
I think that was that one guy's job that also left the athletic department, caught a pass in 1997.
Yeah, maybe. And I've seen,
what else stood out to you?
Well,
wait a minute. Okay, somebody has asked about Ron Brown. Ron Brown is still listed on the staff on the website as a senior offensive analyst, so that's what Ron Brown is doing. Paul Braun has asked a couple of times about Bob Wagner, who I think was supposed to come in as a receivers coach. He is not listed officially on the website, so I don't know what's up with him.
Well,
I know
Bob Wagner's a Texas high school coach, and
right.
They already named, with the list that came out today, they did officially name Phil Simpson, who's from Homestead, Florida, and a high school football coach down there, and he's going to be a defensive quality control coach. And Matt Rhule in the past has brought in high school coaches, especially when he coached at Baylor, he brought in high school coaches. Now, this Bob Wagner, the way I understand it, he sits on the board of the Texas Coaches Association, has quite a bit of influence over the state. Let's look at it through clear glasses here. I mean, this is for recruiting contacts. This is to open some doors in the state of Texas to try to, bring more of the players from down there back up to Nebraska. That makes a lot of sense. Another onside kick coach.
Roger Moore says, "Is there an onside kick coach?" Maybe there is. Maybe they have enough guys here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, offensive analysts, senior defensive analyst, senior offensive analyst, defensive quality control, offensive quality control. I get the strength and conditioning. You got 2 strength and conditioning coaches here. Look, and then the assistant coaches for positions and things like that. But did all these people start hiring all these people just because Nick Saban had a crap ton of analysts?
I think that's why. I mean, Nick Saban changed the sport with all these analysts. I mean, and we're going to talk about another one here in a minute, but what Nick Saban figured out is he can bring in all of these other coaches, and even though they don't coach on the field, what they spend a crap load of time doing is breaking down film. And, they're breaking down film, and grad assistants are doing that well, but they're analyzing film. And so, some of those guys who are serving in those capacities, they're looking 3, 4, 5 games down the road. And they're also reflecting on their own teams, like at Alabama, they're scouting Alabama, and doing it from a different kind of a lens. So, it's become very, very complex. Now, we said that there's another name that really kind of surprised us from the standpoint that Nebraska football now has a general manager, another term that I have not heard associated with a college athletic program. Sean Payton is the general manager for the Nebraska football team. And he came from a corporate background where he was a corporate account manager at Bentley Systems and an institutional representative for Forest Pharmaceuticals. So here you're bringing in a general manager with, a wealth of experience outside of athletics. But the thing that's confusing to me is, what is it that he's going to do? Because in professional sports, the general manager is generally the guy who deals with contracts and oversees the scouting and makes, and assembles the team and assembles the coaching staff, sometimes with input from the head coach, sometimes not. So general manager for a college football team, that's got me intrigued.
Well, maybe he's going to be the guy that, he's going to be the guy that interfaces with the nil collectives from a business standpoint. Because there was a rumor and allegedly thing that happened with some other guy that was here where the players had some nil stuff going on but allegedly paid. So maybe his job is to make sure that everything's copacetic, because I mean, if you want a guy to not play well, have his mind questioning things that he shouldn't be questioning. Have him thinking about his girlfriend or something before he walks on the field, or if he's going to get paid this week. Those are not good things that you don't want your people worrying about those if they've had promises made to them, because people should be keeping their promises, So
well, and that makes a lot of sense too, having somebody that is in charge of that. And so that, John, that makes perfect sense to me that might be part of this guy's responsibilities.
I mean, I mentioned that I think college football is going to become much more NFL-like, and this is kind of a, it's a sign. And I mean, sure. if you got the money and you got that, I mean, I kind of look at this, if I put on my old cranky old man cover on, persona on, and I go, get off my lawn. My first reaction to this is, why do we need so many guys? We had like 4 of us, and we forged the trail to the Western lands, years ago in 1845 or whatever it was. I don't know. But then I look at it and I go, if you have the money and you can have these people doing different things for you, and this is what it takes to win, that's kind of where we're at, isn't it? Putting together. You can either do that or kind of be Kirk Ferenz and just roar. Nobody's ever going to fire me. I'm Kirk Ferenz. My son coaches for me. 6 games, 6 wins is good. And teams like Iowa, I think they are going to get left.
We've had a few people reading the comments here. I think we've got another topic to address here for a few minutes. And that's hockey at Nebraska. We've heard this for the last 4 or 5 years. People have wondered whether Nebraska is going to have a hockey program. Nebraska does have a hockey program. It is a club sport, and they've had that for quite a few years. They play in the ice box, I think, or maybe they play down. I don't know. Maybe they play down by Haymarket Park. Do we think that UNL will ever get a varsity men's hockey team? No. I do not believe that they will. And, I'll give you a few reasons why I think that. Number one, there was all kinds of rumor going on years ago that when Tom Osborne was the athletic director at Nebraska and UNO dropped their football and wrestling programs, that UNL would not compete with UNO's hockey program because that was what was going to take UNO to the Division I level. I mean, that was going to be their baby. And, so there was kind of a hands-off mentality as far as UNL getting into the Division I hockey business. Now, that could have been all rumor and innuendo. I have no idea if there's any truth to that at all, but there has to be truth to some of that, at least in my belief. The other thing is
go ahead.
Well, I don't think Trev Alberts, now that he's in a position of authority at Nebraska, I don't think Trev Alberts, I don't think he's going to put together or advocate for a varsity hockey program simply because of what was built at UNO. I think he probably still has some loyalty there. And, first of all, there's no high school hockey in the state of Nebraska. There are some high school level teams that compete, in some non-school affiliated leagues. But you can't subsidize or support 2 Division I hockey teams in a state that doesn't have any kind of a feeder system. I understand that UNO is surviving, but 2 teams that would be heavily dependent upon bringing in athletes from out of state.
That's just it. we don't have the players for hockey. I mean, put it this way. I live in Minnesota, the state of hockey, the hockey state. There are 6 rinks probably within 10 miles of my house. 6. And that's not including winter when everybody just scrapes off parts of lakes and they turn into ice rinks for the, hockey playing and stuff like that. So if you're going to have hockey players that are your own, you're going to have ice time. And ice time around here, even with all the rinks we have, is always filled up because everybody wants to skate. Everybody wants to play hockey. Everybody wants to do that kind of stuff on the ice. I've never been on ice skates. My kids did ice skating, though, for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's hard. I think it's hard.
But that's my big thing with the Nebraska starting their own hockey team.
Well,
as people have pointed out, we do have a club team that is hockey, and
you'd have Title IX implications.
Yeah.
And if you're going to add another men's sport, and Nebraska doesn't do a bad job with Title IX, and I thought that they've done a nice job with the 50th anniversary of Title IX, recognizing some trailblazers at Nebraska. But by the law, Nebraska is not compliant with Title IX. And so if they added hockey, they'd need to add more women's sports. Well, okay, there's women's hockey, so add men's hockey, add women's hockey. You know what? Right now, if Nebraska was serious about trying to get closer to level, they'd add women's wrestling. Nebraska already has a wrestling program for men. Women's wrestling is one of the fastest growing sports in the country at the college level. They could add women's wrestling, and that would put them closer to compliance. And you could share facilities to a large extent. So, yeah.
If they build more rinks, I mean, you have to kind of make a commitment to a certain level. Tyler O'Connor says, you would be surprised how many Nebraska kids play hockey. I don't know if I would have played D1 hockey. I don't think I would. I mean, when I was young, my nephews in the winter up by Arnold would scrape off part of a lake or some damn thing and play hockey. So I'm certain it's a popular sport. The problem is put it this way, if Nebraska started a Big Ten hockey team, where are they going to fit in that hierarchy? Are they going to be competitive with the rest of the Big Ten hockey teams? Because you're looking at, Minnesota, just Minnesota, and then you've got all these other teams that have, hockey players in their state, and they're going to pick up their own hockey players. So I understand. We've had this question over the years at CornNation, and I think I asked the athletic department once years ago, and they were kind of like, under the table question, the logistics doesn't work. There's just not enough resources for them to do it. And then, like Todd said, the whole thing about UNO having hockey. I honestly, University of Nebraska Lincoln, University of Nebraska Omaha, I mean, it's changed since I went there. They even call that Kearney place a university now, so it's all one system. I mean, maybe we just take on UNO hockey. And
I want to go to a UNO hockey game. I'm planning on it at some point.
Are you?
Yeah.
I should get out to a game or two up here. Where were we? What were we doing? When these hockey crazy people came.
Yeah, the hockey crazy. Well, hockey people are crazy. They have great mullets. Incredible hairstyle.
My kids got hockey jerseys for Christmas. I didn't think they were that big of hockey fans, but suddenly these Wild jerseys have been pulled out on FaceTime, of course.
Yeah.
You know what? We're going to take this from Stephanie Jackson. Stephanie Jackson, way earlier, like 83 minutes ago, said the defense is bringing back, I'm spitting, a lot of key contributors without even considering the new guys Rhule is bringing in. I think they are going to be stingy this season. I won't be surprised if we run off 9. And I think she means run off, 9 players. But I figured, Stephanie's been here a couple times. I figured I'd get her comment by her up on the board.
Well, very true. They're bringing back some important contributors, to the defense. And when you look at the fact that, the thing that worried me the most about what's transpired, since the end of the season and, going through the process of hiring the new coach, on the defense was, would there be depth at linebacker, and were they going to be able to get more depth in the defensive line? And, at least, and you're not going to play, in all likelihood, true freshmen are not going to contribute along the line unless they're just freaks. But they are bringing in 5 defensive linemen, and they're bringing in 4 linebackers. So they're looking at that depth issue. I think the defense will be very strong next year, and they're going to have new coaching. They're going to be playing in a new system. That might be somebody that is really, really exciting to watch play. So yeah, I would agree with what Stephanie has to say.
Do you think the offense or the defense will be better next year, Todd?
I think both of them are going to be better.
Why? Which one's going to be the better one? We didn't prepare for anything like that.
I think the defense is probably going to be better.
Do you?
So, yeah, I think so.
It's the line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Tyler's got a good question there. Let's throw this one up.
You mean this one? Where Tyler O'Connor says, John, Todd, who's your favorite recruit we got so far?
You go first.
Well, I think the easy answer is going to be Malachi Coleman, whose name is spelled Malachi or pronounced Malachi, but for some reason my brain keeps spitting out Malachi, which is
Malachi.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. I mean, there's a Malachi. God, forget it.
Being the biblical scholar that you are, I would certainly think you'd have Malachi down.
Yeah, you'd think so. Part of it is because when you're around up here, there's this college up here that's for real expensive people, real rich people. McAllister. Yeah. And if you say it like that, they get really pissed off, and it's really fun. Instead of McAllister.
Right.
Anyway, the easy answer is Malachi Coleman, but I'm going to go with that Quentin Ives kid because I just think he's a weird kid. The whole idea that he didn't have any stars, he was never rated, nobody even knew he existed except for Matt Rhule, the recruiting genius.
Yeah.
He probably is coming into a place where he's not going to see the field next year or the year after that because there's a lot of players above him. But, the whole underdog thing, the whole come out of nowhere, make a name for yourself thing, it's strong in me, just like America, Todd.
There you go. Well, my favorite is Ben Scott from Arizona State, the center, because it appears as if, so Trent Hickson is gone. Center position is going to be up for grabs. You're going to bring in a guy who has 2 years of experience playing center, at a Division I Power 5 conference school. Now, I understand that we had high hopes for that Anthony kid from Oklahoma State last year, and he struggled at times, Hunter Anthony. But I think that this Ben Scott is the real deal, and to be able to put him in to the center of that offensive line and anchor them there, I think that's huge. I think a common belief has been we needed to bring in some portal players. We needed to bring in some more offensive linemen. I have said, I've been on the record here saying I think that the coaching staff is going to continue to develop some of the young players that we have. But, this way you've got a guy that's been under fire. He's going to be the center and anchor that offensive line. I think that's my favorite player that they brought in.
Now, there was a guy on YouTube. I did a video on Ben Scott, and there was a guy on YouTube who was an Arizona State fan who said Ben Scott was mediocre. And my reaction to that was, woo, mediocre. Shit, that's better than we've had for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I think mediocre starting center, fine. Just start the next season. What the hell? Okay. Should we just keep taking questions?
Yeah, let's take Tony's up there. The one that just came in.
Tony Wlashin. Is Nebraska okay with starting the football season every year with a conference game? Well,
I don't like it, but
Uh,
I'm going to qualify it. Personally, I believe when the Big Ten expands and brings in UCLA and USC, let's play big boy football and get rid of all the non conference games. Play everybody within the conference. Don't bring in some of these fuddy duddy FCS teams or Division II teams. Play Big Ten teams, 12 Big Ten teams. Boom, boom, boom. But that being said, since we do play non conference games, no, I do not like to watch Big Ten teams play the first game of the year against each other. And, you know, at least what I've seen at Nebraska, even going back to the days of Tom Osborne, the great Tom Osborne, Nebraska always needs a few games to work out the kinks. When we were in college in the 80s, they did some schedule rearrangement and they moved the Oklahoma State game up to the first game of the season. And Tom Osborne then scheduled a non-conference game in front of that. So, you know, there's something to be said about playing a non-conference game and getting your feet on the ground before you have to jump into one that has high stakes.
I think you know what? I would be okay with us playing a team like Minnesota or Purdue or somebody like that at the first game of the season if I had confidence that our coach was going to actually be prepared. And my problem with starting at Northwestern last year is because that the other guy, I didn't feel like he ever prepared for anything. So, I mean, I felt like that for 2 years. So, I don't know. You kind of get the idea. I mean, let's face it, all this stuff's about money, right? We're going to show a non-conference here. We're going to show a conference game to start the year because it's going to get TV ratings. And we sold our soul to those people to get all this money to hire these 18 different analysts and an assistant to the head coach who's going to keep people's shit together, shit in line. It's shit in line. And then a general manager. I mean, if we're going to have all the money to hire all those people, I suppose it has to come from somewhere. Blaine Cole from Japan. I assume he's still in Japan. He says, historically speaking, weren't the first 2 games of the season like warm-up or preseason games?
To some extent, they have been, but then there have been quite a few seasons where the first game has been kind of a warm-up game, and then they jump into the fire. I remember times when they went out to Arizona State the second game of the year and got beat. They played Penn State the second game of the year. I remember in 1981 when they played Penn State and Auburn, both of those schools non-conference.
Right.
And that just happened to be an Auburn team that had a gentleman by the name of Bo Jackson playing for them. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's frustrating. I hate to see them play 3 walkovers. I mean, I hate that.
Yeah.
But, you know, they've at least recent scheduling. I mean, we've had Oklahoma playing non-conference. We've had Notre Dame in non-conference. We've had Oregon non-conference. We've had USC non-conference, at least, you know, in the last 10 to 15 years. It's kind of nice to see some of those teams. So, you know, get a cupcake for the first game, play a decent team the second game, and get a moderate team the third game. Then you ought to be firing on all cylinders so that you can take on the Big Ten.
Gargo Mel 91 says Florida State. Were you there?
I think that'd be cool.
I remember that game. Yeah. I remember us, what was it, 18-14 we lost to them, 1980, what was it? 4? 3? Somewhere in there. I turned to the guy next to me and I said, Florida State is a rising program, just rising up. You can just see this. And that was, you know, Bobby Bowden years later thanked us for allowing him to get a jump start with his program and by beating Nebraska at home, which is something that never happened. But yeah, Florida State. I mean, Tony comes back and says he prefers a cupcake for the first game. Maybe you would like some cheese balls for the first game. I'll try to have more props for the shows going forward. I don't know what they'll be. Okay, I had some pinned messages. Blaine Cole says, is Coleman that tall or is Rhule that short?
Yes.
Coleman is a very big guy. So I don't think Matt Rhule is a huge person. I don't know what size he is. But Malaki, God, I'm going to have to get this out of my head. Malachi Coleman is a very, very large person. Okay, favorite recruit, we covered that. Let's see. Hammy says, any update on that Rhule kid? He is a 2024 commit, so, I mean, even if he committed now, he has a whole year to go through this. Rhule is
I haven't heard anything.
James Borman says, Rhule is an Ewok, as I recall, and as everybody knows, Ewoks are pretty short, pretty small in stature. So, it could be that Malaki... that Malachi Coleman is, not as big as everybody thinks he is. I'm gonna have to really work on this because stuff gets stuck in my head and it's not very easy to get it out of there. 80. Okay, James Foreman has this. 81 was Iowa. We lost Iowa. Remember in 81 we went 0-2 and everybody went completely batshit insane and wanted Tom Osborne fired and burned at the stake and his house burned down. And we really did. I remember that. 81 was Iowa, Florida State, Penn State, and Auburn.
Wow.
Yeah, that's back when we actually didn't play all these tiny teams where we just, whoops, love the props. Thanks, Roger. I mean, the FCS people want their money too, and I'm guessing that when they look at all this and the NCAA is together, they probably look at this and the FCS people look at them and go, you guys are leaving us in the dust. We don't have ways to fund our programs. You're making everything more expensive by expectation setting. Either give us some money or, deal with the consequences, which, I don't know, maybe they'd call Congress in on top of them or something. But, every law somewhere gets started because some alumni something gets pissed off about some inequity somewhere, doesn't it?
And that's why Baylor came to the Big 12.
That's exactly it. Okay, do we have any more? Roger Moore says, get the onside kick out of the way the first two games. Good point. Maybe that was that was the big thing there. Let me go back to my big list of things to see if we got through everything. We did. And we're coming up on an hour. So, anything else? Oh, you know what? David Matney asked very early on, any chance of Coach Rhule making a call-in appearance on CornNation? Probably not. Here's the thing, since the Minnesota on the field thing, I haven't asked for a credential, and I kind of like not kind of keeping myself at a distance. I don't really know what the athletic department thinks of me. I will say this. I noticed, what was it, some issue that came out where, Matt Rhule talked about how he liked Donovan Raiola's technique of coaching offensive line because that's what he did. And take different techniques on the offensive line. And I have thought about, maybe trying to interview some guys I know that would help us understand either offensive line play or different position group plays. So maybe we'll work on that. And but Matt Rhule, I see he did Adam Carricker, but that's because Adam he's a Nebraska guy.
Former player.
He's also very knowledgeable. So,
and what we need to recognize, Lonnie Kittleman has thrown up here, as some other people have brought up, about women's basketball. They're sitting at 10-3. They beat a ranked Kansas team the other day in 3 overtimes. I think somebody asked the question if we watched the game. No, I didn't watch the game. What I was doing was I was following Slack, which is where the CornNation staff, we kind of communicate on Slack. And I just kept, we're going to overtime. Oh my God, second overtime. So I was kind of following along on Slack. I have no idea what I was doing at the time, but no, I didn't watch the Kansas game. But I'll tell you what, after reading the wrap up, that sounded like just a crazy hell of a good women's basketball game. And, we've got a couple of people that pay a lot of attention, that they're good writers. Jill Heemstra does a lot of the writing for the women's basketball program for CornNation. And, Amy Williams is kind of getting back into that same groove where she was at a year ago, and this team's starting to play together. And it appears to me, just from what I've read, bringing on that, I think the last name's Mendelson, the gal who played on the volleyball team. This kid moved up her graduation date so she could come to the University of Nebraska. So she's young for a freshman in the first place. She had some moments on the volleyball floor. And, with 10 days of practice, she made a difference on the basketball court. Holy smoke, this gal, she's got athleticism and talent just oozing out of every pore.
Have you haven't watched any bowl games, have you?
I have not watched any bowl games yet. Not all the way through. I've watched 15 total minutes.
Well, by next week, when we do next Monday, we'll have let's see, December 26th. The Big Ten should start playing the next few days, so we'll have some bowl games to talk about next week. You guys, I'll tell you what, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button on this video on YouTube and encourage people to subscribe so we get more followers and we increase the size of our cult.
Well, we can talk football playoffs next week a little bit. And
that's true.
Yeah. And answer the questions the best we can. We're here because we like Nebraska sports and we love to commiserate with other Nebraska fans.
This is true. This is very true. Are you all done with Christmas?
Yeah, I'm all done. All done. I go back to the real world tomorrow. Got to work.
Oh, wait. I didn't show this. This is a white elephant gift. I see where people have white elephant gifts that are useful. This I got at a staff party. I want you to think about this. Can you hear the music?
Memories.
You know what it is?
Memories, wasn't it?
Yeah, the way we were.
Yeah, the way we were.
Okay, think about it. This is for people on podcast, this is a kind of a brass outhouse where you turn a crank, the front door opens, you observe a man standing in this little brass outhouse. And it's a guy going to the bathroom in the outhouse. Now, I want you to think about who conceived this? And then they stuck an air freshener on the outside of it. Who conceived this and then decided, no, use the way we were for music?
I think you can put it all together. It looks like it's a young man using the outhouse. And as older gentlemen, we can appreciate the power we had when we were young men.
I want you to look at the guy. Can you see the guy?
Yeah.
He's blonde, Todd. Blaine Cole from Japan says, "Is that SF inside?" If I understood what SF stood for, I could possibly answer that question. But there's a strong indication that perhaps maybe it is. I don't know.
John, we better hang it up.
Yeah, we better. Okay, well, it's not quite New Year's next time, is it?
It will be past New Year's next time.
Oh my God, we'll be into 2023. I guess we'll have more things to talk about.
I guess we will.
Okay. You know what? Good night, Todd.
Well, Happy New Year's, John.